Welcome to the Stories of Gold show. My guest this week is Mila Johansen, and we are going to be talking about how to write a book quickly and easily. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I know how challenging it is to write a book. I'm actually probably going to write a book in a long time and not so easily route. So I'm looking forward to the wisdom that Mila can provide for us. Mila is a multiple best-selling author of 5 books, and in her program, From Pen to Publish, she teaches how to easily write and publish the short book. She coaches authors all around the world to get their books done and published. Welcome to Stories of Gold, Mila. And first of all,
thank you.
Correct me if I'm mispronouncing your name.
No, it's Mila. Mila, like Mila Kunis, the actor.
Okay, great. I was like, that name could be changed. And I know I've heard your name before, but in the moment, I'm getting a little anxious about how I'm pronouncing it. So I'm glad to hear that. So tell us how your story began. How did you first become an author, and why did that happen?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. When I was really young, and I'm going to date myself here, we went to see Mary Poppins. And when I came home, I wanted to be like her and jump into chalk drawing. So I drew some chalk drawings really bad because I was 8 years old. And I closed my eyes and I jumped in, and I believed it would happen because I already had a great imagination, and nothing happened. So I tried again and again, and nothing happened. So I thought, okay, well then I love Nancy Drew. I'm going to start writing novels. So I started writing my first novel. I wrote a page and a half and I quit because I was 8. And then when I was 18, my mother said, I know you've always wanted to write. So why? She tricked me. And I do this with writers. I trick them now. She said, write 1 sentence a day for a month. And she knew I couldn't just write 1 sentence a day. It's like potato chips, right? So I wrote a whole page a day or more. And by the end of the month, I was a writer.
Wow. So by writing 1 sentence a day, at least that was the target, the tiny habit in BJ Fogg's world that got it all started, right? And once
it was great. And I tell people, right now the big thing in the writing world is 20 minutes a day. Keep your butt in the seat and write 20 minutes a day. And that's all we ask. You don't have to stop at the gym for 2 hours. You stop for 20 minutes, walk on the treadmill and walk out. That's what I do. And so now I tell my students even 5 minutes a day. And that's how I trick them, because most people can't write just 5 minutes.
I actually remember a few months back, I think it was April or so, might have around that time frame, and you were in this helping Sherry Mertz with her, I don't remember which one of her programs she was doing at that time, but I heard that idea of writing just a sentence a day, and I'm like, okay, my writing this first quarter of the year has really been awful. And I'm someone who's written 750 words a day for eight plus years now.
Wow, that's good.
But the book that I had been working on for 2 years had come to a standstill. And so I took that idea of write 1 sentence, and I added that to my calendar at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that helped me to get back into gear and to actually start writing again. I have now finished that draft that I was working on, and I'm actually now pulling it all together. In fact, today I'll be spending some time doing a little bit more of that.
Steve, I'm so happy to hear that. Thanks for letting me know, because I think it really works if people would do just that much, because people think, oh, I got to carve out the whole day. I got to do 2 hours. So thanks for saying that, because we can inspire anyone who's listening to do that.
It's amazing what you can get done in so little time.
Well, do you know Toni Morrison, the novelist? She wrote her first novel in 15 minutes a day because that's all she had, and now she's famous.
Yeah, so if you can find 15 minutes in your day So maybe that's skipping Starbucks, maybe that's, you know, watching TiVo and cutting out all the commercials and, you know, I mean, there's 15 minutes. You can get 15 minutes pretty easily. And by doing so, you can create something that is pretty remarkable. In the 8 years that I've been writing my 750 words, which is the site that I use for my daily writing practice, it takes me roughly 15 minutes a day to write those 750 words. And in that amount of time, I've written 2.33 million words.
Wow. Well, I'm going to quote you when I'm working with clients. I just got off the phone, off the Zoom with a client from New York who's a comedian, and I'm going to tell them 15 minutes a day could be 750 words. I didn't know the measurement. Thank you for that.
Well, that's the accountant in me, and the fact that the 750words.com provides all kinds of metadata, so it's really easy to track that information. So
I like that.
It is a really good tool. I also call it my $5 a month therapist.
I'm going to write that down. I really like that. 750words.com.
Yes. And it's the number 750. So anyway, so tell us about writing a short book, and why should we consider writing a short book?
Well, everyone has at least one book in them, and probably more. Once people are finished talking with me on Zoom in a session, they go off and they go, wow, I've got 5 books. And then I also say, so the shortest book you can put on Amazon is with a spine, which you want a spine, is 36 pages. And so anybody could write a 36 page in a day or two, get it edited and get it up in a week or two and have it in your hands. So a lot of people, business people, and are using it to show their expertise, as a giveaway, to teach from, as a calling card instead of a card. Like, here's my calling card, or a PDF. And so, and then also a lot of people I'm working with, because I'm working with novelists and business people who are writing nonfiction, the business people. And so they're using their short book as an outline for their longer book. I have one student who had just been intimidated for years to write her long book. So she goes, oh my God, I'm going to put out my short book first, and then I'll add on to it. And that's how I write anyway. When I'm writing even a long book, I'll write it in layers. Barbara Kingsolver says, give yourself permission to write a bad book, then work on it till it's a good book. So slam it down. I was just working with someone, I said, put it all down, and then go back and layer in improvements, and then layer in better words. At the very end, I go through and I put in more adjectives or something, and so give yourself permission to just get it down, because you'll be surprised. It will probably be better than you thought it was while you were writing it.
That's really cool.
Okay.
I've got
Well, that's okay. I'll keep talking if you want. there's a lot to it, and also, so let's say I wrote this big book about my grandmother for the 100th anniversary of women winning the right to vote. She wrote it, but then I went through and improved, and put metadata and pictures. And this book is 300 pages. So, when you're going to self-publish on Amazon, I got all my samples and all the books I want to give away or sell for $4.50 a piece plus shipping. But then after her book, which was very difficult, from Cowgirl to Congress, it was a big book. I wrote a fluffy book about my dogs and avant-garde dog training. This book is 125 pages, which I call a comfortable book. But to make the book bigger, I have all these little secrets. What you do is you double space between paragraphs, and then you can do 1.5 between sentences, because I was at like 120 pages. I wanted it to be a comfortable 125. So when I double spaced between paragraphs and used 1.5 instead of 1 for sentences, it extended it to 125. And then I added in a lot of value at the end, like the dog calendar with all kinds of dog holidays. So like you can add in, like when I wrote my book about writing, I put in writers' conferences and writer terms. So you can add value at the end of the book to extend it a little. Now, you do 36 pages is the shortest book with a spine. But if you want your name on the spine and the name of the book, that's 98 pages. And then on up from there. So let's say if I have my grandmother's book, okay, usually you write your short book first, then you extend it to longer books, right? But with my grandmother's book, I'm going to take it apart and make 5 more books. I'm going to do her growing up in Colorado days, her days putting together Pulitzer School of Journalism and Smith College, then her days with George Bernard Shaw in London, and then her days speaking with Eleanor Roosevelt in Washington, D.C. when she was the first lobbyist. So I'm going to make it into more books. So there's a way of thinking modular, which I've kind of invented because I've written 22 plays, and I realized most schools and theater companies weren't equipped to practice for long plays. So I wrote them into medium and short. And so I have short, medium, and long of all my 22 plays. So that's like 66 plays. And they sell all over the world because people like having the shorter one. So, and people's attention span is not big now. Please do not write books longer than 300 pages. Put them into 2 books if you have that. There's a lot to it, but that's the basics.
I can totally appreciate that. One of the books that I'm reading right now, and it's actually an audio book, the chapters are 2 hours long, which is just, it's like, and generally my intention is to read a chapter a day in a book that I'm reading. 2 hours though for a chapter, that's a big investment of time. And while I may or may not have the attention span to listen to 2 hours of a chapter, I just really wish that the author had broken it up into smaller chunks.
Well, wait, while you're on chapters, let's talk about that 1 second. There's no rules on chapters. In my book, I have some chapters a page and a half for my grandmother's book, and some are 5 pages, 10 pages. So there's no rules. In fact, it's almost interesting if you take your chapters and make them all different lengths. So people go, oh, it's not another 10-page chapter. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. So I would actually be interested in seeing what the page length, the paper version rather than the audio version of the book, how long a 2-hour chapter is.
You know what I do? I listen to books on tape a lot when I travel, and sometimes there's something I want to learn from it, like a certain technique. So when I get home, I buy it on Amazon so I can look at the actual book. I've done that with several, so you might want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So I do that sometimes too, because an audiobook, I listen to an audiobook pretty much every day. Oftentimes when I'm cooking or just, out on a walk or whatever, it's a good way to digest another book without, in an easy to digest fashion. And that's one of the things that I really like about your idea about, writing the 36-page book or the 98-page book, and the idea of having more white space in there, that by having 2 breaks between chapters or 1.5 break between lines, it actually makes it be more visually relaxing because there's more space. Yeah. Unlike, if you pulled a textbook off the bookshelf, and generally you're going to find really dense copy paragraphs, and it's going to be and the language is going to be generally much more advanced, and most people don't pick up textbooks off the bookshelf and casually read through them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. A lot of people have visual problems too. So some people are putting their books in like regular print, but some people are doing the bigger print. So you can put your books on Amazon in many different ways. You can do the same book and keep doing it over, but you could do big print for people who want that. There's a lot of options here. And what I suggest, here's what you do. This is my formula. You put your book out first, and 6x9 is industry standard, by the way. So you put your book out first, your physical book, because you want your book, your paperback I do paperback, I don't do hardcover. You want it on your friends and associates and clients' bookshelves. You want the physical book out there. So then I wait 3 weeks or a month, and then I put the ebook out. And then I already have the PDF so I can give away at summits and podcasts. And then you do the audiobook. Audiobooks are selling for the exact reasons you just listed. While people are walking, driving, cooking. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I've been getting them from the library. But now I'm starting to do Audible, which I've done my first one, Where the Crawdads Sing. Wow, what a book. But so do them in that layer. So, physical book, ebook, you have your PDF already for giveaway, and then do the audiobook, which is through Amazon. You can do it, and it's called ACX is a company that works through them,
Okay.
and you can just walk yourself through it. If you go to my YouTube, milajohansen.com, I have a whole tutorial on how to do the audiobook that I had taught at one of my writers groups.
How cool. I also use Goodreads to track the books that I'm reading, and one of the things that I've noticed is how many different editions there are of various books.
Oh, really? That's good. Yeah.
So when I say, okay, I read this book, did it look like, was it this edition of this book, or was it the edition that's with a blue cover or the red cover or whatever? But I think what it's doing is expanding kind of the footprint of what's available. When you go looking for an author, you'll come up with multiple titles by that author. And sometimes that, from what it sounds like, when you're doing these different drafts or different versions of this book, are you changing the title, or how do you deal with that?
I'm probably gonna change the title a little so that it doesn't get mixed up. But the other great thing about KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing through Amazon, is that when we first put my book out, a couple of my friends came back and said, "Oh, we found a couple mistakes." You're always going to find them, so don't beat yourself up. They're going to be there, even when you think they're not. And I had professional editors, real professional, which I suggest. So we go back in. That's the great thing about KDP. You go back in and you make those little changes and you republish it. So that's the second edition, really, but with no new cover and with the same title. But with my other books, I'm going to go, I'm probably going to say The Colorado Years from Cowgirl to Congress, to change the title for those short books,
Sure,
right?
sure.
I didn't think of it till just now. I'm brainstorming with you. Really, I hadn't thought of a title. So then I'll go The Washington, D.C. Years from Cowgirl to Congress with Eleanor Roosevelt. So get her name. I name drop, because in my bio on KDP, you get to put a beautiful bio. Name drop or put your most important words in the first three sentences, because most people are only going to read those first three sentences.
Okay, that's interesting. And is that where it within the first three sentences, is that when they have the little link to show more?
Most people won't push more. And that's the same thing for Facebook. Put your most important information in the first 3 to 5 sentences, because most people will never push more.
Sure. Nice. So a couple of things that I'm thinking about while you share that. One, you're giving, I think, another reason why I want to go self-publishing route rather than the traditional publishing route is that I can control the different versions. I can control the timing when it goes out. There's just, it seems like you have a lot more flexibility, a lot more you can do when you self-publish rather than when you traditional publish. Is that correct?
Yes, and to traditional publish, you really should have an agent, because going to other countries and everything. And so and that's why Amazon's good. They do that for you. But so it would take maybe a year or two to find an agent, if you can, another year or two to get published. It takes about 2 years to get published. So unless they're quick, like Harvard Press is quick. But the thing is that if you self-publish, you can decide every single thing yourself. And I know many people now who were traditionally published, including me, who have gone back to self-publishing because you make a little more money in the end. Not always, but you can. And so you can, like I said, you can get your book up in 2 weeks or 2 months, or right away. And otherwise you're going to wait. So here's what I'm doing. I do suggest this. So pick your books that, like, okay, I had to do my grandmother. I was going to try to shop around my grandmother's book, but August 18th was coming up fast, and it would take 2 years, and I wanted it out for the celebration of women winning the right to vote. So I did self-publish with a lot of help from someone who helped me. And then I did my dog book, on Amazon. And so what I say though, I have a couple novels I'm really partial to, but the timing doesn't matter when they come out. So I'm going to try to shop around maybe a couple of my bigger books, but I'm going to self-publish everything else. We're publishing right now my 101 Surprising Tips to Promote Your Book. That's being published right now as we speak on Amazon. It'll be out in a couple of weeks probably, because we're loading it. And so another way to do that, if you go to Fiverr, Fiverr with 2 R's,
Right.
Everything used to be $5, but there are people on there who will load your book for very low price if you don't want to go through it. If you're good at math, you can load your own books. I'm not. So I have people do it for me. You can find cover makers there. Look at the covers they're making for other people. It's very reputable on Fiverr, really fantastic. And you can get everything done for you. You can find editors. It's a little harder. You want to send them 3 pages, see how they do. I found at a writers conference a very professional editor who lives in Virginia. So that turned out for me. So you just need to find someone who really is thorough and good, and who will add. I asked her to add words in for me. She probably added 100 better words than I had in my book.
Wow.
And I really like that. Ask your editor to, if they are the type, to give word suggestions.
Okay. So is that like words, synonyms for words you're already using? Or?
Yeah, when I write, I actually have my writing thing, and then I put up a synonym app right next to it. So when I can't think of a word, I go over there. But don't spend time on that. Like if you can't find the word right away, put a little underline that you know you need one later. Or what I'll do, I have all these tricks where, okay, I can't think of the word I want, but I think of blue, aqua, purple. I put blue / aqua / purple. And then when I read it later, the right word slots in for some reason. Or if I put a blank, the right word slots in, but don't get stuck on words. I met a writer at Comic-Con who writes, he's really cool. He writes like Isaac Asimov did, 8 to 12 every day, but he has a rule, new writing. So if you're gonna write 20 minutes, make that new writing. And then if he wants to do research and editing, which we all hide behind, I do, he can do that in the afternoon, but he doesn't allow himself to do that during his dedicated writing time. And that will really help you. So don't get stuck on trying to find the right word. Just move on if you can't find it, and it will slot in later when you reread it.
Sure. One thing I do for when I want to come back, either because I need to do more research or I'm stumbling for a word or whatever, is I'll put my notes in square brackets, because I don't typically use square brackets unless it's something that I like what I'm saying, where I want to make sure that I go back and do something with it.
Yeah.
So that it's unusual enough and it's easy enough to do a quick search for those square brackets, and I can just go through them really quickly.
That's good, because you're not stopping to read your writing to address that. That's good. And then also, let's say that you have ideas. I was just telling someone this morning. If you have ideas while you're writing that you want to write, but you don't want to stop and go back to page 15 because you're on 65, have a file open on your desktop and then just put that idea in. Oh, don't forget to talk about the cab in New York, or forget the color blue when you were in the ocean, and just put little bullet points. And then also, here's another thing. We all have about 5 books in us. That's what always ends up when I'm talking to people. Have another file with each name of the book you're thinking of doing. Oh, the one about my childhood, if you don't have a name, It's good not to have a name, actually, because that's another way to get buy-in. But we'll talk about that later. But anyway, so what you do is you have a file open, you go, oh, make sure you tell the story about da-da-da-da in that. And because as you're writing, they're going to feed each other. My books all feed each other. I'm working on like 10 novels. I probably won't finish half of them for years, but that's okay. I have one I've been working on for 20 years, but I got caught up with these other books. So it's okay. Keep them out there. Keep them kind of open on your, not open, but on your desktop, so you can go, oh, don't forget to tell the story about blah, blah, blah.
How do you keep track of those? I imagine if you've been working on a novel for 20 years, and if it's how do you make sure that you retain the digital files for that as your computer changes, as operating systems change, etc.?
Oh, they transfer. I mean, my Mac just crashed 6 months ago, and my Mac guy helped me find a really good one. Oh, there's this good eBay site that has really good ones that are used for sale and really reasonable. So I bought another Mac. He came over, get a Mac guy or get a PC guy and woman, whatever, and have them come over and switch everything over for you. And make sure you have everything on a hard drive because you don't want to lose your work. I keep all of my stuff in certain, like I'll keep it on my desktop and in documents and on a hard drive. So I have like 3 places and I copy it there because you don't want to lose your work even for one
Right.
day, right?
Well, I've
Yeah.
written numerous novels over the years,
Really? Wow. Wow.
but they're all gone because I didn't retain the digital files for them.
No. Okay, well, you're not going to do that anymore, right? You have a hard drive right now?
Right. Yes.
Okay, everybody.
Well, that
Hard drive.
and
I mean, remote hard drive. Sorry, remote hard drive.
yeah, remote hard drive and back up to the cloud and that
Yes.
kind of thing. So, yes, it's actually that book that I was talking about earlier. Also, it mentioned that even Google engineers really stress the importance of not just relying on a single, like the cloud. If something happened to the cloud, there was a story about a guy, well, about a number of businesses that had files saved to the cloud, and then the company that had those things saved to the cloud was investigated by either the FBI or somebody like that, and they locked up everything that was on those cloud servers, and the people who had information saved there couldn't access it. So my point is just make sure that you have lots of duplication out there so that if something happens that you will be able to recover what you've
Especially
got.
now with all that hacking going on, there's a big one predicted. So if you don't have a remote hard drive, go on eBay and buy one. Or if you go to Staples, I went to Staples the other day, and on eBay, not eBay, Amazon.com, it was $20 or $30 cheaper. So I said to them, "Hey, do you honor this?" And I showed them on my phone, and they gave it to me for that price.
That's great. So I'm curious, what would you say your top tips are for writing your book quickly and easily?
Okay, well, there's a good way to start. I teach 4 times a year, write your short book in a day. And my next one is coming up September 14th, and you could join through milajohansen.com. And you will write your short book in a day if you go by my rules. Otherwise, you'll get a really good start. Or some people come in just to work on their long manuscript because it's a dedicated 5 hours inspirational writing. I get everybody going. I give tons of tips on publishing, and it's really, really fun. So that's September 11th. Sorry. It's on my site, milajohansen.com. Anyway, what you do is I start the day with everyone thinking of a working title. When I say working title, it's because you want to shop around like 4 titles to people on your social media later to get buy-in. Like if everyone gives you a little advice, they'll go, "I want that book," and they'll buy the book when it comes out. So, but then with the second thing we do, this is the most important thing, you can all do this today, whether you're writing a novel or a business book or whatever, write down your chapter list, like 10, 20, or bullet. If you don't have chapter names yet, that's okay. Bullet list, like, oh, I want to talk about when my mom took me to the zoo. I want to talk about when my father came to visit at Christmas, or whatever the story is. I'm just throwing things out. Blue, red, purple, And so you put up a bullet list or a chapter list. And so like when I was writing the dog book, I put in like leashes, free feed versus, anyway, I can't think of the titles. I have them there. And sometimes when I'm doing that, the cute titles will come right away. And often it might just be a bullet list. But then I go back and improve them. And no matter what order you put it in, you can change that. Then here's the secret. You've got this bullet list. So it's like your outline. It's your outline. It's a secret. So what happens is then you pick the one subject that you think you could just slam on the page right now really easily. Pick that. Could be the beginning, the middle or the end or anywhere in there. Then you write that just as fast as you can. Then don't edit now. Then pick another one. Oh, I did well on that. I could write the next one, and you pick the easiest one. So you go easy, 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 and then by then you're getting a flow, so you can tackle the harder subjects. And don't do your research during that writing. Remember that, or your editing. Just put it down, and then later on do research to layer it in. So those two techniques will really get your book going. In fact, I think Steve is giving away one of my gifts, which goes through that process. 5 steps to get your book started or to jumpstart your book. And I think that you can, if you just follow those, it will really get you going. And you could do it even before my class. Don't wait for me. You should start today. Oh, your sound went off, Stephen.
It did.
Oh, there you are. He's back.
I have got an active household.
Hey.
Those are some great tips. One of the things I also hear that you saying is the advice, the counsel that I've received and have learned to follow, and that is don't try to edit while you're creating, while you're writing. Because that is a terrible trap that I used to fall into all the time, that I would write.
Me too.
So how did you break that habit yourself?
I think it was the man at Comic-Con. I went to his classes. I mentor a lot of people, but I have a lot of mentors. It's so important to have both. And I went to his classes at Comic-Con for like 5 straight years. And he always said that. He always starts with, he didn't say it was like Isaac Asimov. I bet he did get it from him, but I had read many years ago, decades ago, that's what Isaac Asimov did. But that he said it always has to be new writing. So even if it's 20 minutes a day, but it's new writing, or 5 minutes a day, but don't allow yourself to go and get that word or research that thing, because I used to hide behind my research and editing. Okay, I just can't write right now. I'm going to reread my stuff and edit it. Do that later, but have that dedicated time to remember this. This is the word, new writing.
Love it. Yes, and again, that new writing, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes or a sentence or a paragraph or whatever it is, it all adds up. And the more you do it, the sooner that you get the draft done, and the sooner that you get the book published.
Exactly. And we got to remember Toni Morrison, 15 minutes a day, because she was raising children and working, and she's famous now. So that's what we have to keep in mind. It's not about going to the gym for 2 hours. It's about what we can do.
That's awesome. So thank you, Mila, for sharing your tips on how to write a book quickly and easily. I have a couple of questions that I ask all my guests at the end of the show, and I will provide a link to your 5 tips document that you shared with me in the comments below. Also, so my 2 questions are, first, what does a richer story mean to you?
I think giving tons of value, and I also think that layering it, like layers and layers. Like I said, I just listened to Where the Crawdads Sing, and she did so many rich layers in that, and descriptions. And so, if you write your shell first, your first draft, but then you start layering in details and descriptions, and just give it more depth and psychology. And why did this person do this? Nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. Those kind of concepts. Do you agree with that? Is that a good answer? I'm not sure.
That's a great answer. I don't think there is an answer.
Okay.
I think, and one of the things that's cool about layering is that I used to think that these really rich, really layered stories, they were written in the first draft. And what I'm learning now is that it's just like working on a painting. You do the background, the first layer, then you do the next layer, then you do the next layer, and before long, it's much richer than just the initial layer that you first laid down.
I love your analogy. And something else that happened to me was I used to write in notebooks, right? I have like 3 or 5 shelves full of notebooks I've scribbled in. I always start everything in a new notebook, so they're not all full. But I've been typing now for years and years. Well, I just started going back to notebooks on vacations, and my writing is becoming deeper. In fact, in many colleges, they're not allowing laptops anymore because they find out that people retain the knowledge better if they handwrite it. So think about that. If you're really having trouble with a passage or some description, just sit back and just kind of like haze your eyes and write in a notebook. A lot of people are going back to that, and it's really given me many more layers in my writing.
That's so cool, and what a great tip. I've got, if this camera moved just a little bit, you'd see a dozen notebooks that I've got here, actually probably more than that. Then you've got my journals and all that. So, and I tend to write the bulk of what I do on the keyboard, but I also keep lots of notebooks just to keep track of all my thoughts and what I'm learning from books I'm reading and so forth.
Yeah, and Steve, that's a great idea because some people have notebooks. A lot of us already have a lot of material that we don't think of as books. My one friend has 500 well-written blogs. I said, hey, you've got 5 books there. Why don't you publish those? So you could be writing, some of your journals could turn into great books.
Yeah, well, some of my journals are turning into a book right now, but
yay.
It's great. One of the things that's nice about that is I can go back in time and say, okay, what was I doing in September of 2015 or something? And I don't have to rely on my very faulty memory. I can actually go back and see specifically what's going on at that time in my life.
Yeah.
And that actually leads to my final question that I asked, and that is, how are you adding more stories to your treasury of stories?
Well, I have so many that it's a little confusing. And like this weekend, I spent a weekend at this lodge, and there was a guy there that told a story very much like The Help, where his family had moved from Chicago to Mississippi, and he sat next to the only Black girl in class, and then he was called a and lover, and his mother was paying $15 to the maid, and she was called in by the bridge players and said, hey, we only give them $250. You can't ruin our lives with paying more. And he went through this whole thing, and all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God. And he told me about 10 more stories like that. It was like a novel he was holding out. And I told him I may have to come interview him one day because I almost couldn't help it. I outlined a whole novel from spending the weekend at this lodge with my girlfriend, and he was there. So you never know where the stories are. The stories are, I'm also writing a book right now called The Cinderella Monologues, which is a memoir of me growing up in kind of a rough neighborhood gangland, and how I got away from it, and how I became a great worker, and I did all the housework at my house, and interesting, very interesting book. So I'm putting that out. So your own story. I want to help everyone write their memoirs. You know why, Steve? I tell everyone, they laugh when I say this, write your memoir to prove to your kids that you were young once.
Yes. Now that both my parents are gone, I really wish that they had written more of a memoir themselves, because it would have really helped us cross the divide in certain areas of our lives.
Yeah, and go record your parents now, everyone. I recorded my grandmother for 2 weeks, 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, and I'm really glad I did. I have her voice telling all stories.
How cool!
Go record. You can do it on your phone now. It's so easy to just do it on your phone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mila. I really appreciate you sharing all your tips and your wisdom and your experience. I think all of us have at least 5 books within us to go out and share with the world. and make the world a richer and brighter place. And tune in every week for another one of these Stories of Gold shows with an expert like Mila, and create a richer story for yourself and your audience. Until our stories meet again, be the bright light in someone's dark night. Ta-ta.
Shall I shut this?